Hello, I'm Peachy.
And I am Geoff. And today we're taking another one of those Willy Wonka chocolate factory style dives into Games Workshop. Peachy's going to be my Oompa Loompa guide. I'm going to be Charlie, and as a man far too old to be wearing these schoolboy shorts. Pat, as always, is naked, but unfortunately today is now having to share a bed with three other old age pensioners. Welcome to the Painting Phase. People have asked about it, and there's been some other little bits and bobs people have been saying on the comments that now that they've got access to someone who's been behind enemy lines.
Behind enemy lines? They're not enemies.
Well, no, they aren't. No,
It's being good exercise.
Yeah, I don't know now how to dig myself out of enemy lines. I'll just have to say with it. Just to go with it. But anyway, because you worked there for a number of years, you've been at the factory. There's been questions people have been wanting to know. Have been people have been asking out, interested about different aspects. On one of the ones that's come up a number of times is not something I have a great deal of knowledge of, but I know a bit, is your feelings towards the old worlds of Warhammer going, and Age of Sigmar rising phoenix light like from its ashes.
Yeah, it's one of those popular kind of like questions you get asked, and when you work the workshop, obviously, you got to be, well, it's what happened, I think, was the right thing to do.
All right.
But I think it could have been done better.
Okay.
So I'm a loyal fan of the old world, have been for many years. Had like Dwarf armies, Chaos armies, got Empire, Dogs of War, big fan, very big fan. And there came a point, certainly probably not before, a couple of years before the Age of Sigmar, Phoenix Rising, if you like.
Yeah.
That when sculptors were trying to make new cool stuff, there was a lot of restrictions on what you could and couldn't do, because you've now made a very rigid historical setting that can't really go anywhere. Because it, like, if you want to, there was an idea of introducing tanks for dwarfs, right? The dwarf steam tank kind of thing. And no one liked it. Well, I painted one up. I like the aesthetic of it. It looked mega, but certain people didn't like it, and it wasn't then ever used. So you had all these cool things that had access to. The thing that did get through was the gyrocopter, because we had gyrocopters in the past.
Yeah.
Something new and fandangled like a tank. We've never mentioned that in history before.
The funny thing is the little that I noted was Empire had one, didn't they?
Well, yeah, because that was Marco. Is it Marco Colombo or the other guy who, I forget the guy now, who's basically like Leonardo da Vinci.
All right.
Leonardo something. Drop it in the comments, because I can't remember in my head. He's so filled full of like names these days. But yeah, so he was like some kind of Tillian designer.
Oh, so it was like, this is literally a one-off.
There was only ever 12. So if you ever wanted an army of 50, you couldn't, because there's only ever 12. Historically, that we made all these restrictions as a company. As cool as I loved it, because like I said, I had an Empire army, I had Undead. I had been brought up on that background. I love that background. I love the Empire. I love the fact they got Sylvania next to it. So you had like this kind of fractious, I won't even say alliance. It was like, we won't invade or go into this land because it's full of dead people.
Yeah.
But we know they invade us, and we've got like little bits here and there. So, and they all had all the different states, the Empire states, and obviously the rest of the world. And those areas we didn't even concentrate on, what you could have done stuff with. And yeah, so I was very fond of the background, very fond of the stories, but I understood we couldn't go anywhere with it. And you'd always be restricted. So whenever you did something new, it was just a re-envisioned version of like the Dwarf Slayers or the Dwarf Hammerers. So when the Dwarfs came out, I did new Hammerers, which were like, you could be long beards. You did Iron Drakes. That was new. That was accepted. Like Iron Drakes with guns. That was okay, because they fight down the tunnels. We don't really mention them, but it does work.
Yeah.
So you could do like the odd one here and there. But, you know, having access to new plastics was good. I wanted to see plastic Troll Slayers. I wanted to see like new sort of Empire State Troops and stuff like that, or like plastic Tillians and things. So the way it kind of went about was, there was a lot of things that were going off at the same time, and people taking the IP. I mean, you could argue that Games Workshop's IP is based off the old world. Certainly is old world.
Yeah, absolutely. and it covers so many things, doesn't it? It's like old historical Earth, you know, and then also a lot of it is, you know, I can't find a nicer way to say it. It's basically very heavily Tolkien-esque.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. I
mean,
and you've got like a setting which is a parody of like our planet.
Yeah.
And that's cool. And back in the day when they were like making, like, we're talking 80s here, because I've got some of the old rule books from that time. that they didn't have access to fantasy things, so they used historical figures, which is why Britannia exists, which is why the Empire is very Renaissance sort
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
black powder level stuff. Britannia is more like French knights, and then you might get some barbarian looking, I don't know, Celts, and then give them like weird looking skin tones to make them a bit orky or whatever. So that as a background and as a setting came from historical wargamers wanting to do a fantasy thing. They had access to historical figures, but eventually as they got sculpting doing and going on, they started to make weird and wacky kind of things, but it still had a cool setting that could only go so far, which was parodies of like Europe, medieval Europe or whatever. But as a result of that, it's also quite hard to keep as an IP of your own, because you're kind of taking other things. So it's like, well, they're just French knights, right? They're just Landsknechts.
Yeah, because the problem to some degree, I suppose, with elements of Warhammer Fantasy is that you could have just raided normal medieval rangers and like you say, Renaissance rangers, and just built armies without like going down this path, but for less money than it would have cost you to buy.
Yeah, well,
Draconians, and
I think in that day that's what people did, and then obviously they became very iconic. So the dwarfs are very iconic of Games Workshop. I know they had a Tolkien vibe, but they were very different to Tolkien dwarfs. The elves, again, you had like different factions of elves.
Yeah, because you had your basically your wood elves, who were very Tolkien-esque.
Yeah. Then your high elves, which again very Tolkien-esque.
Yeah.
Dark elves.
Yeah.
Not so.
Yeah.
But then dark elves are taken from Norse mythology, which is, and you've got Malekith there, which is, as we know, if you've ever seen the Marvel films, they've taken that from Games Workshop. No, wind your neck in Peach. That's in Norse mythology. So,
do you think it was a bit? Do you think as well they were a bit frightened to create any new races?
I think so, because the history wouldn't allow it. Because where were they?
Yeah, where they've been all this time.
Yeah. So I mean,
I suppose with Warhammer 40,000 is that even though they don't do it particularly often.
Yeah.
Some of it has been written but never had, like they'd been Adeptus Mechanicus forever.
Yeah.
They just never been an army. You only see them mainly in Imperial Guard forces as the mechanic, but that was it. You didn't get an army of them, and so there's probably, by name off the top of my head, 10 races or factions that exist in name only. And also as well, you go, we went to the far ends of the galaxy and these guys gave us a bloody nose, and now they're a bunch. And I suppose when you are dealing only in one world, I suppose it is harder to do. You are right and go, where have they been?
I mean, there were a couple of places that had names but no sort of factions. So Tilia became a thing during like probably the early 90s when the Dogs of War came out.
Yeah.
Then the only other faction I'd probably say was made from that was the Ogre Kingdoms, which we travelled a bit further east, and you're like, let's just make some Mongolian-esque looking ogres that eat flesh and worship flesh and have giant big maws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then there was things like Cathay, Nippon, Estilia. Nippon very much, I believe Nippon is the Japanese for Japan.
But
so that's really like scraping the barrel for names. But
I wonder what their bit is.
Exactly, yeah. So samurai. Yeah. So then you had like Cathay, which was I think they were like the dragon monks. They referred to them. So I imagine monks but dragons.
Yeah.
So like bipedal dragons maybe, and then that's going down the route of Dragonlance. So you're infringing on like Dragonlance's IP.
Well, I suppose as well the other problem to some degree is that was that blatantly initially Mantic created this whole range of miniatures that were blatantly designed to go, you can use these in your house as Warhammer miniatures. If we'll do elves, which you can't stop us doing elves because they're very elves, and they're going, and we'll do them with this sword, we'll do them with that shield, we'll do them with that halberd, we'll do them with this, we'll do them with that, we'll have them on this, riding that. And it was basically just going, hey, you've got your Warhammer Fantasy book, but here's our version, and it's a bit cheaper.
Yeah.
And and I think until such point in time as I can't even Kings of War. It's called Kings of War, isn't it? Before Kings of War got hold of the Italian chap along. Yeah, thank you. When they got hold of him, then they were able to make it much more their own thing. But initially, it was like, we're going, look, if you've got that rule book, buy these miniatures. They're cheap, and they're close enough that you can't.
It's not copyrightable.
That's a problem.
You could make elves, you can make dwarfs. So I think that was and like there was like a lot of stuff going off with the legal side of things during that time. So I understood why Age of Sigmar would become a thing. It made perfect sense because then you can make factions. And I'm a big fan of Old World, and I'm a huge fan of Age of Sigmar because for two different reasons. I was brought up on the Old World, love the stories, love the books, love the setting, but I love, as a hobbyist that creates stuff, what I can do with Age of Sigmar because it's a blank canvas. But at the same time, that's a big danger because it's a blank canvas. You aren't as attached to things, whereas you've got those years of like, I love Talabheim. That's the one state I'm a fan of. There's people that are like, oh, I really like Norn, or I really like, Altdorf. And I'm like, no, I'm a Talabheim guy. I like yellow and red together. They look great. And Dwarfs was one of my first factions. My dad brought me a blister pack of Dwarfs, and that became my first faction. And I just painted them up. I didn't really think about dwarf holes. Then when I got a bit more into it, it was like, oh, you can have different holes with different colour schemes. And then when I was in the oil painting team, we did Zufbar, and Zufbar didn't have a colour scheme at the time, and they've already generated colour schemes. And I was like, maybe if I did like a sort of a sky blue, not sky blue, well, it's Thunderhawk blue. I'm trying to think what kind of tone of blue that is. It's kind of like a
grey blue.
It's a smoky grey but bright blue. And then I did it with white as like quarter. I thought I was very Celtic, but at the same time, it's different to all the other colour schemes we did. And I really enjoyed that army, and that's when more like building up different things and stuff. So I got quite invested in some of the armies that we did, and I was very invested in the Old World and the stories. But we started to do this thing called the End Times. It was very obvious what was going to happen.
Yeah.
A title called the End Times. Now, previously, I mean, a lot of fans out there will be like, it wasn't. I think from being involved in it from behind, and I know from conversation with a lot of people, we all agree we could have had that going a bit longer.
Yeah.
And the reason being is the first one that came out was Nagash, and you had a bunch of like scenarios and narrative driven stories and scenarios to play for, like a campaign almost. And by the time like friends were like building up collections to play in this campaign, and like, oh, we're going to get Nagash because they made a cool model of him. I'm going to build this faction to fight against him. There's loads of stories, and like, if you want to do like a big grand alliance, it recommends these kind of things. By the time you like even mustered a fraction of this, bam, the new book was out.
Yeah,
Kane's out, and I'm like, God, I've got a bit of catch up to do. I mean, I paint fast, but I've got a bit of catch up to do.
Do you think was any of it financially based? Was Warhammer Fantasy suffering? Was it?
Oh yeah,
struggling compared to.
This is why I think I understood the reason as a move for two reasons: to make your property, your IP, copyrightable, but also to sell stuff. Because as much as people out there talk about, I'm a big fan of Old World. I'm a sixth ed stoic. Where were you?
Yeah, this is often the case.
So. Because I used to work in the stores, and 40k is always the top seller. 40k was the biggest seller. Warhammer always suffered. It was always the second core game. It was always classed as the second core game because it always suffered. It was never going to ever compete with 40k.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings came out. That became our second. That almost channeled to the same level as 40k for a time. And even after 40k... Lord of the Rings had ended, and we even had the dip. It was still classed as the second core game, and Warhammer was down here. So we used to run beginners courses and do intro gaming, and 40k was always fully booked. So we used to do like 2 beginner sessions of 40k just to try and get the numbers in. Lord of the Rings was always pretty. We used to do one on a Sunday. It was pretty filled. Warhammer, you were lucky if you could scrape 2 people.
Wow.
So usually it'll be like on a Sunday, it'll be like it was what we used to call like chill out time. So you'd have like 40k was in the morning, you're like, oh my God, it's going to be so busy. Like 40 kids coming in, we teach them how to play 40k and have a load of laughs, but it's going to be busy. Then Lord of the Rings, I love Lord of the Rings, we're like, it's only like 12 kids, we'll be fine. We'll just do like Balin's Tomb or something like that. It's like, time to shut, make a cup of tea. Got one guy coming in, he's got Empire, I'll use my dwarfs or something like that.
Yeah.
That, I mean, obviously when you look at it,
and he was about,
in retrospect,
about 45.
Well, yeah, it's that's bad. So it needed something to help.
I'm happy to come and play Warhammer, but have you got a chair because my hip's not what it was?
Yeah, man, yeah. But yeah, so it did suffer as a core game, and it's because there was a lot of old guard that like would only ever use the same armor, they'll never buy anything new. And there's a lot of people that made a lot of noise when it died and Age of Sigmar came around.
There was a number of problems. So there's a number of things here. Pat once said to me when he was working there, and he made a really good point that I never really thought of at the time, was when people bang the drum that their army isn't getting a codex as soon as they would like, or it's not getting new models.
Yeah.
Pat once said to me that there was an Imperial Fist captain released that in 1 year
Brother, heresy, heretic, for the Emperor, burn them all, deviant, repent, purge.
I don't know that from my side, because obviously that might have been a conversation, it might have been, but I mean, that happened a lot.
And this is the problem, is people you're right, you see, they bang the drum, they go, where's my stuff, I want this, I want that, and you're going, but it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? And going, well, if you don't keep buying it, we're not as inclined to make new stuff for it. But at the same point in time, if you've been an old guard Tyranid player, you get to the point where you've got everything, haven't you?
Exactly, yeah.
And you can't keep making new stuff. You go, well, there's nothing else for me to buy.
Same problem like Empire, if I collect Empire, once I've got like all the types of state troops and I'm like, I don't know, I've got 4 units of spearmen, 4 units of halberds, a couple of units of archers. Do I want to do another state? No. I'll just keep using this. And, right or wrong, that's people's choices.
Yeah.
But then don't complain when it's taken away from you, because you've never bought it.
You know what you say about the fact that there must have been some people shocked that they went, and that's the end.
Yeah.
And you're going, well, the title of the campaign was the end times. But I think the problem being, sometimes is that often there has been these big monumentous campaigns, and realistically you get to the end of them and nothing happens.
So this is
because there's what happened Warhammer 40,000, and going, the Eye of Terror, Abaddon is on his way, this is going to happen. And then you went, oh, yeah, there you go, whatever. This is the same as it was.
Or Medusa, that was part of that campaign. It was like, this summer a world will die. It's a world no one knew existed beforehand and no one cared about. So, no, it did die, you're not wrong, but no one cared about it. When Cadia fell, a lot of people cared about it. But, so I'm going to come back to that in a second.
Yeah.
Or 10, 15, maybe 30 minutes, because we waffle. Yes, we had campaigns like the Storm of Chaos, and the Storm of Chaos, I was there when that happened. They had this characters, blacksmith called Volt, and he was supposed to be like Sigma Reborn, and it went through this cool story threads, big battle at the end at midnight, and after all the dust has settled, it didn't change anything.
Yeah.
Volton died, a brand new character that exists that were just brought in for this campaign died, no one else did. Gazgul Thracker, I forget his name now. Is it Gazgul? No, that's Gazgul Thracker's the footy council. Grimgor Ironguard headbutts Archaon. Doesn't kill him, just headbutts him. He's like, yeah, I'm the toughest guy here. And then heads off home. And it's like, cool, what an anticlimax. Nothing happened. So the end times happened. People thought, it's in that vein. Oh, hang on, you've just blown up Oldorf. Oh my God, Norn's gone. Yeah. What's going on here? So when things started getting destroyed, it was that kind of Game of Thrones kind of vibe where characters are getting killed off. It started to feel real that
people were something where going to happen was going to happen.
And I forget what it's called. I can't remember if it was like Sigma's Blood, but that was a tiny prelude to the end times. It was like a small little campaign pack. And at the end of that, Volkmar the Grim gets killed by Arkan the Black, because they're reincarnating Nagash, which is when the first book comes out called Nagash. Nagash exists, and there's like I'm trying to think who are some of the other characters. Some other characters get murdered, basically, and have their throats slit around this temple. That was like the prelude to the end times. Now, from the studio point of view, I can't remember, I'm not going to confirm or deny this, I can't remember if we stated when it first started if we were going to destroy the world, or if that was something that we understood later on. But we did know it was a campaign set called the End Times, and it would change the history of Warhammer. And that's definitely, I do remember that conversation, but I don't remember if, like, were we aware at the start it was going to blow up or not? I can't remember. But my biggest bugbear was there wasn't enough time between books to play games.
Yeah.
So I think, and a lot of people after, and this is the thing when you make these changes, which benefited Games Workshop later on when we did like the Fall of Cadia stuff, because we get a bit more time between books and give time for like some of the changes. But you could have had time to play the games before the next book comes out, time to play the games, and chuck in some more releases and stuff. But because it was so compact and so rushed, and then went back straight into Age of Sigmar, we've redone the setting. I think that's what jarred people a lot. I don't think it gave them time to come to terms.
Yeah.
And also time to play through these cool scenarios, because those books were so well written.
Yeah.
And a lot of writers like Phil Kelly, Matt Ward were all involved in it. And I've still got the books. I probably won't ever play the games, but I love reading those books because the narrative in those. My favourite is Cain.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is Malekith is a knob for most of the story. And he is all the way through that book. But then, because his arrogance is so big, because he thinks he's going to be a Phoenix King, like that. This is why he becomes a Dark Elf. He believes he's the Phoenix King and arrogantly goes in, but doesn't stay long enough, because you have to understand that you have to go through the pain, and then once you come on the other side, you're worthy.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, it's too hot. oh no, and dies out and then gets horribly scarred and stuff like that. But then he has to do it because he needs to do it. And that's when he has that kind of character arc of like, oh yeah, I am the Phoenix King now.
Yeah.
I need to sort out my own problems. And my mum's gone a bit weird. And she's hanging around and cavorting with some Slaneshi demons, but we'll talk about that later. But yeah, so that was a really cool sort of character arc for him and lots of other things. And seeing like elves, which would always like Imric, for instance. Imric is held as like one of these kind of cool elf characters. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
I think it's the very first part of that story. And there's because you used to have lots of gates in Ulthuan. I think it was the Griffin Gate or the Phoenix Gate. And they're basically being attacked by dark elves and malice. So this is the thing I loved about the end times is anything that was a resin character was going to die.
Yeah.
So in the story, when Malleus Darkblades, they like, you're a resin character. So sometime during this story, you're probably going to get topped off. And he dies in the first chapter. And like all these guys are defending, killing the Dark Elves, and suddenly all these dragons start appearing in their eyes. Like, yeah, Imric's here. Imric's sided with the Dark Elves.
Oh, right.
And you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. He just murders a load of his own kinsmen. So there was loads of cool stories in there, and it was really well done. I just wished it had gone on longer. And if that had happened, I think as a business we could have prepped Age of Sigmar a bit more.
Because I think this is this isn't a problem that Games Workshop's had before, isn't it? Is the fact that the one that stung a lot of people was Kill Team Ending and Kill Team Starting. Was when they brought out that box set, whatever it was called, the one where it was it was the first time you'd seen the primaris heavy intercessors.
Oh, yes.
And you were fighting the Necrons. Yeah, that weird little Necron scenery.
Yes.
They'd gone, this is like an arena, and it's this, and look, it's new guys, and it's that, and it's an expansion. And a lot of people were going, doesn't seem like very good value. And also, it was the first time they'd sort of done miniatures. The first time you'd seen them was in the Kill Team box. Everything else had been a pre-existing.
Yeah, got a Slade on in there as well, didn't you?
Yeah, and it was like, so 2 new kits straight in. People want to go out and buy it. Rush out and buy it because it's got brand new flayed ones who are really nice, heavy intercessors who are really nice, and then went, and that's the end of it. And then you went, and and people were all, and I remember reading it, people were like livid at the thought. Yeah. And I think I do sometimes think I don't agree with all the Games Workshop choices. A lot of them I do. I think it just could be a little bit more of read the room about how you do.
Yeah. Do you think there was an element of reading the room? And
I know you've got to ultimately go and switch that off and switch that on. I know it has to happen at some point in time, but I think that one, it was like people weren't particularly happy about the box and they were quite cross. And you go, what'll make them happier? What? Completely changing the game system. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then, don't get me wrong, it is a better game system.
Yeah, so, I mean, Age of Sigmar is the same. So I liked the minutiae of Warhammer.
Yeah.
But I like the way Age of Sigmar plays, and I found that could be more tactical in Age of Sigmar. And there might be some people that disagree, and it's not as tactical, but the way you deploy your men and you get natural flank attacks. And I remember we had these road shows going on when Age of Sigmar was, in its infancy, and I'd gone to Essen Spiel, and I was with a couple of people. I went to Coventry as well. I got sent to Coventry. Yay! And it was about just explaining. We had stuff. We'll talk through like some of the rules and stuff. And the idea was it was 4 pages of rules, and I think it's gone a bit mad now. There's like
it was very stripped back, wasn't it?
And this is like Star Wars Legion do this. They have a very simple rule book which is free. You can download it. The important thing's what's on your cards, and your upgrade cards. That's the information that makes your unit or your faction different. Mm-hmm. So when you like getting, I don't know, Cassian Andor, and you upgrading with different things, and it depends what you want to upgrade it with. If you get an old selection of cards, it just says you can have these upgrades, and some are specific to them, and some are just generic ones.
Yeah.
That changes the game, and there's less to think about because everything you need to think about is in front of you, which is why I was like 4 pages of rules for Age of Sigmar. I can get behind that. Some real simple sort of terrain rules, some magic rules. But then you had your data sheets, which had like all the information you needed, and it was so well done that there was no sort of like ambiguity. It was like, this is what you need on the dice to hit, this is what you need on the dice to wound.
Yeah,
this is how many attacks you get, and if you have a banner bearer, a musician, a champion, these are the benefits you get, and you got a cool special rule if this character's close to you. And it's like, that's all I need to worry about that unit. I don't have to go through what's the special rule. Fearless, hang on, give me a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not this book, is it? It's this book. No, it's not, but it was that book. So, you're having all these like post-it notes on the side telling you all these different special rules. So I loved it for the simplicity of that, but it could still get quite in depth.
Yeah.
Tactically, you could do lots of cool stuff, depending on how you organised your men and how like you piled in. The weirdest thing, and at the time you had to get behind it and be positive about it, was the no points thing.
Oh, that was really odd, wasn't it?
It was like,
Because I don't think gamers can be trusted for no points.
no, I mean, I think we discovered that. So, I mean, I'm from someone that does historical wargaming, you don't play points a lot of the time. You reenact battles.
Yeah.
Right? So as
Try and have roughly what you need.
yeah, so if you're reenacting Waterloo or Quatre Bras or something like that, yeah, and you know that I've got some King's German Legion in La Haye-Saône and I'm going to get attacked by a few French columns.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have some riflemen in there as well, and, you know, a handful of stuff. And the idea is we're probably going to get pasted, but it's to see how long we can
Yeah,
hold it.
how long can last out.
That's the point of that. That's not points. It's just like, yep, 7 brigades of French, a small brigade of King's German Legion, hold off for as long as you are, have some fun, drink some beer, eat some crisps, wicked, and then watch Waterloo when you're done. And it was that mentality, but between people that want a competitive game.
Yeah, they want to win.
Narrative gamers could get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a narrative gamer. I could just go, I mean, the way I used to deal with it is, well, I'd like go, let's have like 3 characters and like 6 units. So I just used to like turn my data sheets upside down and go, they're the character ones, they're the unit ones. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. I'd be like, cool, I've got these today.
Yeah.
So that was weird. No points. And I think a lot of people struggled with it to the point where people continue to struggle with it until we made points. So, I mean, there was like guys out there on the internet, bless you, going, I've worked out some maths that if you go with wounds, that's a really good way of trying to deal with it. So, oh, that's not even exact science. So there's all this conversation going off. And this is why I think it was a bit rushed. It could have been given a bit more time. But the thing that I would say about Age of Sigmar was it skyrocketed sales and interest in fantasy. And you still had all the factions. So, you know, I had Empire, I had Undead, I had Dwarfs, and there was rules to use those. Eventually, the Dwarf holds became the Dispossessed, the Iron World Arsenal. And for me, my biggest sort of pet project was me doing the Cities of Sigmar stuff. So it wasn't the Cities of Sigmar at the time, it was just called the Grand Alliance. There were like different factions like Free Guild, Iron World Arsenal, Dispossessed. And I was like, I want to make a city in my own head that's somewhere in the Mortal Realms, because the Mortal Realms is vast.
Yeah.
There's some places like when we first brought out the first book, it was like, this is the Great Parch. It was like, it was slither of land in this massive orb of the realm of fire. So it's like, well, you could do anything then. I mean, I'm going to go over here because no one's ever going to go over there in the IP in the next 10 years. So I'm going to focus on here. So I made a city called Hallaguild. And I was like, imagine if you've got elves, dwarfs, and humans all living in the same city. You're going to have like a blacksmith down the road who's probably got an elf smith and maybe a dwarf smith, and then maybe there's another armory around the corner that has a mix of all 3. So I started doing like head swaps with characters. I'm going to use this head on the elves, but that elf head that's got the hood on some great swords. And then I painted them a colour that tried to move away from any kind of state troops sort of base stuff. So the problem with the Empire States is it's based on the Swiss cantons, and they all have pretty much every possible colour combination. Yeah. So when you try and combine, like, because my Hallaguild stuff was white, blue, and mid-times white and blue, and you could argue that, well, you could say, like, Reichland is like cream off white, and sometimes you can have flashes of blue. So it was like trying to make an armour that didn't look like one of the states. That's what I did gold armour, and I did like teal, or sort of like off teal kind of colour. So it was like, it doesn't look like a state now. It just, and in fact, I got dwarfs in there, and I just went through this like mad sort of like, it's just a mixture, it's just a melting pot of races. And I really enjoyed that sort of creation of something myself. Yeah. Which I won't say it inspired Cities of Sigmar, but I think it helped some people go, oh yeah, you say you can do different things. And this is the thing, a lot of conversations I had when I was at the road shows going, what do you like in D&D? I'm like, well, I'm a really big fan of Drow. I was like, cool, paint your doors, Arcane of Drow. Yeah. You could literally do what you want. They're from the realm of shadow. Yeah. Paint them with literally ashen skin or purpley ashen skin with bright white hair. Yeah, but they have spider riders or driders. So I was like, cool. Make your Melusai ladies with spider bodies instead of snake bodies. You can do what you want. Yeah. Just use because that was the thing with like the data sheets. You could use the data sheet because they've got the movement there and they've got the attacks there. You just give it a different vibe that does something that you want to do. I mean, you could argue just play D&D. You could do that. But if you wanted armies and you wanted a drow army, but still play Warhammer, you could do that now.
I think one of the things I think probably Age of Sigmar did a good job of was for the new player, and because I've been on the receiving end of this, I've only ever played Warhammer Fantasy 2 or 3 times. One of the things I always found as a bit of a barrier for me, having already been a 40k player, was flying, moving things around.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of historical players, that's their meat and potatoes of how they play. They move men around in flanks, and I got that. But you know, when they went into Age of Sigmar and they went, no, everything's on a round base and they move about and it's much more Warhammer 40,000. I know there was some of not being in flanks and in blocks with things like didn't Wood Elves always just move around independently?
Some of them did, not all.
Yeah, not some. Yeah. So there, when I tried playing it and go, I have to wheel this wing. And everyone I thought, oh, I haven't already. See, because the thing is for me, having come from real world military, I would, that's not how we moved.
Yeah,
you moved in a lot more of a, an independent way, but with a loose formation.
Yeah.
And this thing of like doing that, and I was like, no. And then, when I seen Age of Sigmar, and it was like, oh, no one's ranked up, no one's in rows, no one's this, And I remember I had a brief dalliance with the idea of building a Warhammer Chaos Army when it was still the original Fantasy one. Trying to get them all not with each other, at their elbow in each other's face, and one thing or another. I thought, God, I'm not cut out for this at all. And it was a thing that never went anywhere. I bought one box of Chaos Warriors and just trying to get them all to fit inside that little trainer. And and I think that Age of Sigmar must have been good for brand new players into the hobby, and also the 40kers who would go, oh, then guys who in gold look quite interesting, or them lot, right? I was thinking it's closer to what they were playing.
I think from my point of view as a gamer as well, when I used to do rank and file for Warhammer, a lot of the sculptors would do their best to sculpt them so they fit these really tiny bases. Yeah. You still struggle to rank some of them up.
Yeah.
And they're about like the model will be cobbling on one side or whatever, like it's too wide, its arms. Why isn't it on a bigger base? And there was like rules on like size of base. With Age of Sigmar, it was like, doesn't matter really the size of the base.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of changed a little bit, but still that fundamental is there. But you could go mad with conversions, because as long as they're close to each other, it doesn't matter. And it does feel like I said earlier, like with natural like flank attacks, it feels like sometimes when you have like a block of infantry, you're moving forwards, you get into melee, it feels like you're playing Total War.
Yeah.
You're starting to get that confusion. It's like, oh, those guys are kind of cut off in a small pocket there and they're out of sort of coherency. Oh no. And that's got my champion in there, my banner's over it. Oh no. So you could really like get into the minutiae. But I mean, obviously if you're a tournament player, it's just taken off because it's you're about getting the win at the end of the day. But for me, it's about like, no, I don't want Sergeant Rico to die. I love Sergeant Rico. He survived every game so far. Guys, we've got to push over there and get to Sergeant Rico. It's like, for me, it's about the story. So that's the thing I really liked. Like, you didn't have to worry about ranking up. You could use whatever bases you want. So if you had square base, you could still play on square bases. You can go to town with like conversions and stuff. And I think it really helped free up playing and enjoying it. Now, a lot of folks hated the Sigmarines, as they used to call them. Sigmarines.
Yeah.
I like the idea, the concept of the Stormcast, and as at that time, the Stormcast that came out were the Stormcast we saw, and they were a bit clunky, and I'd do like some colour tests back in the day of like different ways of like coming up with colour schemes and stuff. We had a lot of fun doing that, just doing different colours like gold armour, silver armour, slightly teal armour, coloured armour, like lacquered armour. And as the Stormcasts have developed, I think the best Stormcasts are the current ones, which is the Thunderstrike. But yeah, they're a bit slighter. They feel a bit more realistic because they've got like tower shields and spears. They've got like scale mail armor. They look cooler. There was a
bit less marine-esque as well.
They're less bulky and clunky. And before they came out, there was what they called the Sacrosanct Chamber, which were ones that had like the monkish robes. I really like those. And I painted a whole bunch of those like in the different files. There was like Evocators, Sequitors. Wasn't too sold on the Castigators. They had like big crossbows, but looked like they chucked out big jars, and that was cool. Like,
I remember seeing that.
To kill like ghosts and stuff. Before that, you had like the Dracothian stuff, which was like guys riding big sort of like salamander dragon beasts. And then there was the Vanguard, and when you read it, it was like, you're just kind of like the long range desert patrol, really, aren't you? Just like special ops sort of Stormcast. But yeah, as the design's gone on, it's like, yeah, I can see why people are like, it's just you're trying to bring Marines into like fantasy. It's like, yes, because big power armored warriors sell.
Yeah. Let's be honest about it.
Warriors.
Yeah.
So that's why
It's quite funny. Good, you think about Space Marines in the current game. They're very rarely winning a tournament nowadays. In the competitive side of things, they're not doing particularly well. In the meta of it, they're not right up there. But they're still by far and away the best selling thing. Why would you not do something? And also as well, I think, and people would may argue the point on this, but I think in fantasy, there was not one race that you would identify as the iconic look. Everybody was their cool thing.
Yeah.
But you go 40k, and it's the Space Marine, isn't it? And then you once you peered past the Space Marine, you see all the other cool stuff.
Yeah.
But it's that guy.
It's the thing.
And Age of Sigmar cleverly went with, it needs that guy at the front of it, and they figured it out. But the thing I think about Age of Sigmar, and especially I've spotted it in the last 2 years, and since they've got that I can never remember the name. Is it Underworld's the game to play on the board?
Yeah.
I think, which I think has been really commendable, I think the sculptors have really been allowed to just come off the leash and just make some really mad stuff over the end.
Yeah, so the game itself, I've played a little bit and I find it fun, but also it is definitely aimed at like competitive players. It's like trying to get the Magic market to go down miniature gaming, but the miniatures for them would be tokens. But for me, I think it does two things. One, it's because they're coloured plastic, they're push fit, really easy to build, but they are so amazingly sculpted.
They are really
so well designed that to me, when I look at it, I'm like, that's just really cool extra things to use in Warcry. And when they started doing like extra like rules for those for Warcry, I was like, I'm sold on this. But you could almost like just take the models and just do cool stuff with them because they are cool looking. They are, and again, it's like, if you don't like card games, there's something still there for you. And then they bring them out separately anyway for like people like me who might not play the game.
I've always hoped that further down the line, that might be to some degree a little bit like what they do with Kill Team. I would like to see in Kill Team them do units that will never progress past being the 10 men are in that box.
Yeah.
But will be aliens that will go, they are either just out and out mercenaries, or they are mercenaries but only with these guys, or they'll work with them and them, but like, they'll work with all elements of the Eldar, or they'll all work with all elements of this, or they quite like chaos and all, they like, but and I think the idea of doing them where there's only ever 10 men in a box, and then they go on but do some weird and wonderful stuff, because you look in the most recent 40k rulebook, there's some fantastic alien races that have never been seen. There's that one that's basically a walking piece of broccoli with a gun. And I go, I'd like I'd like a squad of them.
I mean, even like Underworlds kind of does that, scratches issues. So you had like the Beastgrave sets, and you had like some Beastmen. You had, I think they're called the Canerthi, which are like faun-esque wood elf warriors. And it's like, it's one of those things where the sculptors are going, let's try something that's different, see how well it does, and maybe down the line we could turn that into a faction. I think that's the cool thing, is like doing stuff like the Witch Hunters are a cool, quite a popular set. A lot of more-time players out there like want them.
Well, that's I think, and that was almost what I was going to round this bit up. I think before I will say that is that, so then, because people out there want to know, collapsing the old world and going to Age of Sigmar, a yes or a no, a positive or a negative?
I think a yes, but I think we could have kept the old world as like a sideline game, which is why it's coming back as and I'm really happy that Forge World have taken that, because Forge World are really good at like specialising in certain things.
And very much so.
Well, it's not just that, it's like the person that's in charge of that is very passionate about that. So whoever's doing like Horus Heresy really cares about Horus Heresy. Andy Hoare is really into Necromunda, really cares about Necromunda, and that's his baby. So whatever happens with Necromunda is going to be looked after because the passionate person is in charge of it. So I don't even know, I can't remember who's in charge of Old World, but the team in that are invested in everything. They've been brought upon Old World, they love Old World. So it's taken its time, it could have been done sooner, but to have Forge World, who are now dealing in a lot more plastic based, to get those armies back and to get that thing, I just wish it had stayed as a game, maybe like mildly supported every now and again, but some of the new kits that you would get, like Fire Slayers, you could easily use as Troll Slayers or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not a business-minded guy. I leave that to the smart people who understand money and figures and finances and graphs. But yeah, for me, it was, even if you killed off for a bit, it could have come back a bit sooner. But yeah, Age of Sigmar, I think it sounds like a fence-sitting kind of thing. I think it was the right move.
Yeah.
But it could have been done a bit differently.
I think the only sad thing that went, isn't it, because it was so loved and so revered as just a perfectly written game, was Mordheim, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mordheim, yeah. I was, even now, I don't understand why that's not a game.
Yeah, because it was just had a really perfect rule set and had some nice merchants for it. So there we go. The answer is Age of Sigmar, but old world for a bit longer and old world back a bit sooner.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay, so we've put old world Warhammer to bed.
Kind of, yeah.
We woke Age of Sigmar up from its slumber.
But
you know what it's like, it's only young, it stayed up far too late video gaming.
yeah, it gets up at 12.
Yeah, it spends too long on TikTok, Age of Sigmar, that's the problem with it. So we've covered them. Warhammer 40,000.
Yes.
Two main bits of this for me. One is Cadia.
Yep.
And the other bit is the Primaris Marine.
Yes.
So we'll go straight into the second one, really, I think, first. What did you think to that when they went, we're going to resize Marines?
Good. Because they look too comical, I think. I mean, it was a design aesthetic we had based off like years and years of stuff. And I don't know if it's intentional or if it just happens with like tech and sculpting, but you're getting scale creep to the point that guardsmen were the same height as
it was very ridiculous, wasn't it?
So when Primaris came out, initially I just thought it was going to be rebranding. Just that, I think at that time when they were coming out, we just brought out a couple of new Space Marine kits, like the Stern Guard and some other like upgrade bits, and like Death Watch had just recently come out as well.
Yeah.
Although Death Watch is slightly bigger than Firstborn. I hate that term Firstborn, but that's the term with
Yeah.
So when Primaris came out, I thought, oh cool, we're actually doing rescaling, we're doing new tactical marines, we're doing this and doing that, and I was excited for it. I still like them. I'm not a huge marine collector, but I love the design of all of them. There has been a few weird designs, and I get, you want to like push the boundaries out because now we've opened Belisarius Caul's vault. We can go bonkers and make all sorts of things.
And Belisarius Caul, the guy who's massively important but never existed.
I've been burning this stuff.
I always thought that. I thought the idea of them doing the Primaris Marine, which is interesting for me because that's when I came back in. I came back in 8th. The Primaris Marines were, I came in late 8th, so we'd not long bought the starter box for my son. I'd agreed to play it with him, and then before we knew it, 9th was on top of us. But we come back in these new Marines, and I looked at them and I thought they are a real improvement, because it had been one of those things that always annoyed me was the fact that I was playing, I had Space Wolves on them. I could be in close combat with somebody who's got Catachans and going, who's the Space Marine here? When you looked at the physiques of them. And I think, it got to the point where you were sort of looking and you go, my Space Marine now needs to be the size of a Terminator. My Terminator now needs to be the size of this. And it got. But, so I think for me, I didn't quite understand the desire of giving it so much backstory. I personally would have just gone, they've got new armor. The new armor makes them bigger. Yeah. And this thing would go, no, they're we're going to create this whole thing, which looked to me like it just, to me, on the story level, just looked like they were going out of the way to make their lives more difficult for themselves. I think,
I do think that, again, it was the knock-on effect of Age of Sigmar and killing the old world. And I think the story was handled, there was a lot of learnings from that story. So when we did the Fall of Cadia, what were they called? There was like a series of books, because you had the Fracture Build Town and then you had the Rise of the Primarchs. They had a title, I can't remember off the top of my head now, but there was the Fall of Cadia, Fracture Build Town, and then the Rise of the Primarch. And it was following that kind of end times stuff, but the intention wasn't to blow anything up.
Yeah.
It was to change some history and move it on, which is what I think the learning was. We could have probably done that with Old World, maybe not, because I think it's better with having more choices and more realms and stuff. But that brave decision to blow up a planet, which we'll come to in a bit, but with the Marines, it was kind of a bit of a fence sitting. From my point of view, it felt a bit fence city kind of. We want to put some new ones in, but we don't want annoy all those people that have massive marine collections. We want them to be able to use their marine collections, but we want to rescale the marines so they look more appropriate.
Yeah.
But we have to find a way to jimmy that into the story. And I think they did the best they could to appease as many people as they possibly could. Some of us, like the die-hard marine fans, are just like, no, don't like it. And then there'll be people like, love it, just get rid of the old ones.
I got it was the idea of going, if it's new armour, then the problem being is you go, well, you know, everyone gets it. And then if you go, well, it's these new guys.
Yeah.
And then, but then I think in some levels the argument still stands. You go, well, everyone would just, you know, would get them as well. And I think from, again, and I often say this, and I know it's stupid to keep referring real well to 32mm tall plastic soldiers. But, you know, when I was in the army, new kit used to come in, and then you would go and visit another regiment, or another regiment would come and see you, and they'd be wearing something you didn't have yet.
Yeah.
And especially if you were in a logistics element, sometimes the infantry would get all the stuff straight away because they needed it.
Yeah.
And, you know, like 18 months down the line, there'd be somebody's would come and join your regiment who'd be like a Land Rover mechanic.
Yeah.
I was still wearing boots that you'd long given up on, or was wearing this. And, you know, so sometimes logistically you go, well, the Iron Hands are X a gazillion miles away from Earth, and it's going to take a while before Mark whatever armor gets to them. And you're going, so I thought, personally, I personally would have just kept it as armor.
Yeah.
Or gone, oh, well, at the moment, the Blood Angels don't think they like that new armor yet.
Yeah, but then we go into that debate of Marines, the older the armor, the better it is.
Oh, yeah.
So then you have to mix Firstborn in with primaris Marines, because you have, like, if you do a Marine army properly, you'd have, like, a selection of armors in the squad, because you got, like, really venerated sort of armor. So there's, like, for me, it was like, because I'm a big Napoleonic fan, like, when, like, Austrian outfits changed, they removed the helmet and gave the shaka. There's still regiments using the helmets for like good 4 or 5 years after.
Yeah.
Not every single one, but there was like 1 or 2 guys would go, "Look, I like the helmet." But you'd still have that. You still have like the Firstborn armor, but on a different. But would you have to rescale it? Would you just have like the little tiny, you know, Captain Tinnitus with Captain, I don't know, but I can't think of a name. That's Gaius Titus or whatever. So. It would make it weird as a unit because you have all these different scales. Yeah. The Death Watchers were saying they had, like, I forget which mark it is, 9 or 8 or something, mark 8. They were a bit taller than the Firstborn.
You're a bit longer in the thigh.
Yeah. So it was kind of like that. You either really change the IP for this particular thing or just get rid of everything that came before. I just go, these are Marines now. This is Mark 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was a minefield, and I do feel for all the writers and designers and everything, but it needed to have a new push. And I think if everyone went back and changed it, I think it'd be a worse situation. I think this is the best, to my knowledge, of being behind the scenes that you could probably get, because you still get to play with your Firstborn, you still get to use rhinos and predators. But then if you want to, you can go down, well, I still have like several squads of Firstborn, and they're mounted in a Razorback and a Rhino. Yeah. But I've got this squad of Intercessors that are mounted in a Gladius, and I've got these ones in a Repulsor, and I've got So you in your army, you go, I like these, I like playing with them, I've loved them for years. Like those, and they might get used once in a while for like some cool game aesthetic. So I think it'll be a natural progression anyway, that people will slowly but surely move away from the Firstborn.
Well, I think anyway. We'll just won't support them any longer, will they?
Well, whether they support them or not as a whole.
Well, not support them is probably not the right term. You know, I wouldn't be surprised come 10th edition when Space Marine Codex comes out, which, you know, probably won't be but within less than a year. I would imagine it'll be on top of us now. The Firstborn will still be in there, but Firstborn miniatures, I think almost like the last Firstborn miniatures we've probably seen now was probably the most recent one of the heroes.
Well, I reckon the heroes will just slightly shorter than Primaris. They'll get resculpted to be a bit smaller. If they like, you know, runs here and there, like Kill Teams or like Blackstone Fortress games, it'll just like, we'll just make the scale a bit bigger because those old kits don't exist.
Because that other guy is pretty much Primaris size, isn't he? The but is in the original, is a Firstborn, is the that most recent captain for the Grey Knights.
Oh yes, I'm going to just involve this. No, not that. He's the Terminator guys.
Yeah, the guy you know.
Stellan Crow.
Oh, there he is.
That's the guy. Yeah. I was thinking of the guy from the End Times of Oldest, but
there's the Black Templar. Oh, the axe, and it's like, are you Primaris or Firstborn? And he goes,
Yes.
Good lad.
That's a great miniature, but it literally does open that question. You go, oh, you know, what is it? But yeah. So I think they will probably no longer get new miniatures outside of a character or a special edition release. Like I say, like Heroes.
If I was to put my shoes, so now the new Cadian armor's coming out, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my shoes into players. The space. I'm not, like I say, I'm not a Space Marine player, but I want all the new Cadia models, but they're taller than my current Cadia models. My current Cadia models are most of them converted as Ventrilian Nobles. I've used so many heads on them. Do I continue doing Ventrilian Nobles and have them in the army, and have all these different sizes, or do I just do a new army of Ventrilian Nobles and eventually just go, yeah, Charlie, to play with these guys, I'm going to play with these nice new shuns. So I'm going to make the call for myself now on screen, which is I'm just going to start a new army with them. Yeah, and I might do a different colour scheme. I might do, because I'm doing this November thing at the moment where I'm just picking all the old states and stuff. I still need to crack on with that. I might just get, you know what, I really like the Reichland colour scheme I did, which is like really not pale cream.
Yeah, we all, I think a lot of the time especially when you go off-piste, like with my son's Space Marine army built, you can't help but start to have your own personal head cannon. Yeah. Because if you don't have your own personal head cannon, painting them becomes really, really difficult. Yeah. You know, and you know, I say Tuesday night I was painting that infiltrator. Is it the infiltrators, the scout like primaris? Yeah. I was painting one as a medic, and I went, let's give him one white arm. That's a medic-y thing, and a white helmet, and then I painted all the helmet on there. Hang on, my veterans have white helmets. He now needs a white stripe to be a medic, and it's so you have to keep a head cannon going, don't you? But I think the great thing is you can just, in your head cannon, you go, the Ventrilians are now like, it's 75, 100, 150 years later, and they are getting whittled away to almost nothing. Yeah. And they're being supported by these guys, and then eventually them guys will go, and these guys will have, you know,
new gears have arrived, and there's just new. That's just a new regiment. It's like the Ventrilian 118th, and this is the Ventrilian 5041st, because that's how many regiments there are. At least. But yes, I mean, for me, I'm going to be in that conundrum going, do I add them to it or just
well, I'm like this with mine, because I've got that Gene Stealer cult army, and it's got a load of Cadians in it. I've been made to look at and go, oh, I'd love to put some Gene Stealer cult heads on the new Cadians, and then I'm like going, how'd you do that? And you go, well, maybe they're just the ones that got our Planetary Defense Force, and these guys got there, and then they got infected, and they did, you know, and it's so it's that thing, because no one ever wants to go, I'm putting them in a box and I go in the charity shop, or I'm putting them in a box and I'm doing that, or I'm selling them, and, you know, as we all do, I'm putting that in a box and it's going on eBay a year later, it's still sitting. You know, and it's, but no one ever wants to admit that it's a hard thing to admit and go, I now have been overtaken by new shiny toy syndrome.
Yeah.
It's hard though when you've spent your blood, sweat and tears into painting a load of stuff. You know, and you go, I mean, off you go.
Touching quickly back on Age of Sigmar, I mean, I've not touched my Cities of Sigmar army for a long time. I added stuff to it over time, and I just never got into playing games, but I've got a vast variety of bands and gangs I can use for Warcraft when I want to. And one thing I've noticed with the new Cadians, because we've got the Kazakin set for Guilty, they're obviously from the same range. The heads are about the same size as existing Cadians, so my Ventrilian Noble heads would fit on them.
That's cool.
Most heads, human-sized heads, would fit on them, so they may have slightly gone up in height, but their head shape is still.
But they've done the nice thing with the Melanie, which is I think the model range Corvus Belli did with being Infinity was taller but slender, smaller hands, and you know, and I think they've started to get that with the KD.
Yeah.
Somebody said on one of our comments is that the breaches were probably the last squat sort of shape of.
I guess so,
and then, you know, that taller, more slender thing will sort of take in for now.
Think about that.
And can I just for a second stop and say, look at Pat. Is the old woman's feet really cold? You should have put them pajamas on. It's your own fault. Anyway, apparently she hasn't cut her nails.
Oh God, we forgot he's still naked.
I know, well, it's his own fault. I told him. He went, no. Every week I'm naked. I don't care if it's a bed with 3 old age pensioners. I'm still getting naked. He's regretting it now. So, and the thing is the problem being is I think eventually you'll be going, well, I'll put all my firstborn on eBay, but the problem is so will everybody else.
Yeah.
So
keep them.
yeah, I think so. I think you're right though. I think you're going to notice the difference. They're going to get taller, and people will just get more interested.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was the best possible route to appease as many. There's always going to be someone that burns their army and films it on YouTube because they hate the decision, but they're so few and far between. But I think if you picked any other option, it would have been worse.
Yeah.
So trying to mingle it in, and yes, you could argue like, simply, it's really lazy writing. I don't think it was lazy writing. I think it was really clever writing to try.
Yes, they could do.
Yeah. so hats off.
Talking of clever writing then, and going back to what we've just been talking about, do you think it was right to destroy a planet full of people and then still give them the new army?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, that was very... there was no thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about the 41st millennium, like the Cadians, they have so many regiments scattered across the universe.
Yeah.
So... if you ever read any like Gaunt's Ghost novels or any kind of like Imperial Guard novels, you never go home.
No.
Once you join a regiment and you're sent up into the stars, you're never going home.
No.
So you've got, I would say Cadians for sure. I've got a bugbear about them being Cadians, but that's another thing. So Cadia, huge planet, billions of people on it, sending billions of people out.
Yeah.
Because it's a warlike state, but they're also the defense against the Eye of Terror. The Eye of Terror has exploded because weird stuff happened. Cadia's been destroyed because that's what Abaddon always wanted to do. Abaddon's done it because we had the Eye of Terror campaign where we didn't do it, like the Storm of Chaos, because, we don't want to destroy it. We destroyed it. I always blew it up.
The thing I always thought was ridiculous about Cadia was that close to the Eye of Terror, but had raised a marine unit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
they're right on the brink of where the bad guys are, but we'll just have...
I mean, they had the Falcons, didn't they? So the Imperial Fist's Stronghold. I mean, that was there, and that took a beating and a half. But I think... for me, being through the end times, watching like my favourite cities get blown up and then go, oh no, boom. Having a bit of that in 40k, then set a precedence go, nothing's safe. We're not going to blow up the galaxy.
Yeah.
But we're now set a precedence that nothing's safe. And to still have billions of regiments of Imperial Guard, I mean, there's trillions of regiments of Imperial Guard, but billions of Cadians, Cadians or whatever. They're all going to be everywhere. They also, on the ships, they're going to be making relationships because we all know if you read Gaunt's Ghost, you get males and females in the regiment.
Yeah.
They form a partnership. They have children. They have hangers-on, which tend to be nannies and cooks and
which is very Napoleonic.
Yes, absolutely. So they are. Yeah, in fact, they're taking the Napoleonic vibe and those armies. They would have a train of civilians, which includes their families. So they're then breeding the next set of Cadians, which will then get trained. Maybe the armor will get a bit battered or. Here's my breastplate, son. Take it with you to war.
The way I've always looked at the Cadians is in my mentality with regards to the way they look, is that not every regiment of guards can be flamboyant or have a really distinctive look all of their own, like the way Steel Legion have, and then Death Corps Krieg have, and which is funny enough because they're both Germans but two different periods basically. But that you can't on all these other ones that now don't have sort of gone the way of the Dodo, unfortunately, like the Mordians and one, but they can't all be flamboyant or unusual. They must be a stock standard Imperial Guard, and in my brain they just wear Cadian gear.
So that's my point. Is back in the day you had Imperial Guard, and it was the old road trader set. And they'll call the cover art was the Necromunda spiders. They had grey fatigues with black tiger stripes on it, black armor. To me, that was Imperial Guard. That was the regiments that were across the universe, the galaxy. And that was the standard armor that was sent out. And then you painted it differently or you had different fatigues. But then you had like your peripheral stuff. And you could argue that every planet was a bit peripheral, depending on what it is. But so there was this argument that the Cadians had armor, Cadian shock troops. But it was like, those breastplates and those lasguns and those outfits go out everywhere. But they'll have slightly different tones and colours or dyes. I think the wisest thing would be to do Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum regiments, and then make your Cadian shock troop thing a little bit more bespoke, like the old Cadian shock troops, because they had like slightly different helmets. Bit like flak armor and stuff that was a bit different. So Kill Team, I think, is a great field for that. So you've got your Death Corps Krieg, you've got your Kazakin, which could have been like the Cadian shock troops. That could have been the design aesthetic for Cadian shock troops. Then you could do Mordians for Kill Team. You could do Talon Desert Raiders for Kill Team. You could do Praetorians for Kill Team, Tanith for Kill Team. So what you're getting is like your little army set that's plastic, that's multi-part, that you can use for Kill Team, but also stick in your army. But then you have Imperial Guard, which is, you can paint it what you want, do what you want, call it.
Sure.
I think picking a specific planet, because you won't go, what, I mean, although the box packaging is painted as Ultramarines, you could paint them whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's not an Ultramarine army, it's a Space Marine army.
Yeah.
And that's the weird thing for me with Astra Militarum. It should be an Imperial Astra Militarum army, and then you get do them as Ultramarines Imperial.
Yeah, because there must be plenty of planets out there with no imagination.
Oh, yeah.
They just go,
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean,
wear that helmet, wear them clothes, off you pop.
there's
Not
planets
like,
out there.
oh, you need a feather, or
Yeah,
have a big red stripe in your helmet. There should just be plenty of people just go, just get that on off you.
There's planets that literally their job, that entire structure of that planet is to make combat fatigue.
Yeah, and especially if you look at the mods, if you look at the modern NATO world we're in, is pretty much now the Australians, the Americans, the Brits are almost wearing the same camouflage now.
Yeah.
You know, they're all basically in this multi-cam thing.
Yeah.
And you go, and that's 3 different nations that are virtually indistinguishable bar the berry and the cat bag.
Yeah, yeah.
And you go, so the same is you just have loads of just Imperial Guard that just look that way.
Yeah.
I hope, and I may be naive when you think that they've just had a reasonably big release for Cadian / Imperial Guard / Astra Militarum, but I hope in 10, even if it's just one box of bloody 10 miniatures like you've done with Deathcore Creek, I'd like to see in the 10th edition, can you, for the love of God, sort the catcher's hands out, or sort something.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, I was convinced the catcher's hands were going to get love, and the reason I was is because of anybody recently of getting quirky and cool looking characters, it's been them.
You got 10 of them,
Yeah, and they've been scaled well.
Yeah,
They've gone they made the heavy weapon squads that didn't look ridiculous like the standard.
Yeah. And
the standard
squad as well. Yeah.
And the command squad got more sensible. And then they did the female character.
Yeah. Ripper Jackson.
Yeah. And then they did the new the new Colonel, didn't they?
Dylan. It looks like Dylan. He has to do Arnie now.
Well, I don't know. I desperately still want. Did you ever see the other head for that though, where it was the beard and the beard and the mohawk?
No.
Yeah, he's got another head for painting him as a white guy, and it's the most spaceful head I've ever seen. Not over spaceful, but yeah. So I think it's I thought I'm really shocked when they didn't. So I thought I hope come 10th.
Yeah.
The Imperial Guard get a second lot of love. Either they expand the Deathcore Creek, or they go, let's go sort the catch stands out. They don't even need to sort all of the catch stands out. They only really need to sort out the standard infantry squad.
Yeah, I mean, that's my Christmas list, is to get like a box of Mordians, a box of Talon, a box of, because they've done a box of Tillian Rough Riders, right?
Yeah, yes.
Just going back to the old school, like you've got like Imperial Guard, and then you've got like
these low shoots.
Yeah.
I always think of it a bit like the Roman army, where they would go,
absolutely,
we are the army of Rome / Italy. Well, and it's
but here's some ideas in Pelter.
But here's guys who are really good at archers, but they're from the other side of the other side of the world. And I think they should do, so that idea of Guard being a mixed bag on some level, I quite like the idea of. So yeah, I thought it was a bit weird, Cadia, going bang, but then they were the arm. But I think what you're saying of the idea that they are out there on the printers, I think makes perfect sense. I think the only other thing I would say to round up, going back to the Primaris briefly, is that I hope once we start making our way into 10th edition, the Primaris, I think, I've looked a little bit sterile when you consider that Space Marine units are so flamboyantly unusual to each other. And I think it was only really the Black Templar so far that I've had enough of a release where they've gone, we're now start making these guys look like walking cathedrals, because that's what Black Templars are all about. If they haven't got something hanging off their belt, then they're not a happy Marine. They love all of this stuff. And I hope when they go to 10th, Space Wolves or Blood Angels, I know they've already got accessory sprues, but I want to see them, Primaris being released looking more like the chapter they're meant to be. And because I think at the moment it's still a little bit like going, oh well, you buy this accessory sprue, but you can get to change like 3 heads and put this. You go, I want to see further releases, and I think it will happen.
Yeah,
I think if it's happened with Black Templar, I think it will happen with the others, that they'll get more their chapter.
I think touching like crossing the strings a bit as well. Like the first conversation is with like Age of Sigmar being the thing it is. You have so many conversion opportunities from some of the kits on there that can transfer over to 40k.
Oh, actually, right, yeah.
I mean, I use like Sequitors as Crusaders for my Imperial army, so just giving them like Vanguard heads and stuff, Skitarii Vanguard heads. So there's definitely be like lots of beardy guys.
Yeah.
If you want to do Space Wolves, that are probably like going to be Age of Sigma based. So even if there isn't a kit specific out there right now, there's definitely stuff.
Well, I used to do them heads that were from the guys who used to wear the wolf emblem from old.
The beardy head sprue.
Warhammer Fantasy.
Yeah. White Wolves.
White Wolves. Yeah, they made it into Space Wolves.
Yeah.
So then, I think.
Was that some?
Yeah.
Is that some facts?
Well, Games Workshop will now be frantically writing all of this down now. Though
I don't think they will be. They already know it. They already know.
We're probably sick of emails going, we read that before.
Just watch Painting Phase. They'll answer it for me.
Yeah. We're gonna, hopefully, because there's people who have been asking in the comments what we thought about Primaris and what about the old world.
There's lots of thoughts that I will never go into because I don't want to, I'll get on the bad side of Workshop because I love Workshop, but there are things that people shouldn't know. That it is Workshop's right to keep some stuff to itself, but a lot of the things that I've talked about, in fact, all the things I've talked about, is kind of common knowledge anyway. It's just change the thing. Some people agreed with it, some people didn't agree with it. So yes to blowing up, could have been longer. Yes to Age of Sigma. Yes to destroying Cadia. Cadia does stand in bits. Just spatial debris now.
So then, before we go, should we remind people of how they can get in touch with us? We're available. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter. You can find me on Twitter, and all the rest of us on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter, TikTok. Yeah. We have Patreon. Patreon is a good way to support us as well because... And as well, we're saying as well, Patreon, there is now only 6 one-to-one monthly sessions with you left, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah, only 6. You can get...
I'm 6. I'm joking.
You can get in touch and have your... send some
stuff.
Reviews and
we've had a few people actually go for that too, but not actually send us any pictures. I'm like sitting there going, I want to help, but no one's sent anything yet.
And affiliate links.
Here, yeah. So
go on, pronounce that German one.
Oh God, I got a load of phonetics and I didn't swat it before, and I think it's Taschengelddieb.
Which is, what was it? What's it work out at? Pocket money stealer.
Pocket money stealer, yeah. What's that coming now?
Pocket money. You can rely on the Germans to be on the nose when it comes to stuff. So there's that, and there's obviously Element Games.
Element Games as well. Yeah,
would be wonderful.
And if you're still watching at this point right now, don't forget to like and subscribe. That would be. We like it when you do that, and it just looks great for us. Yeah,
because we've got really small egos, haven't we? So
I've got a huge ego.
Oh right.
That's why my hair's gone. My ego soaked away my hair.
Well, you can see my ego is really small because not theirs, isn't it? More. Anyway, thank you for listening to all of that waffle. No. You asked the question, so do you?
Yeah. And also, we're still not wearing pants today or trousers. Just look
at the face on that. Look on the face of that old woman now that Pat kicked that quilt off.
I don't want to. That's not a face.
Oh, good Lord. And on that note, bye. Bye-bye.